Hey there, MWM Insiders. How you doing? This is Rich Harshaw here for our strategic marketing call. Today we're going to talk about Joint Ventures Plus. Now you can review on some previous webinars that I've done in the past. I believe the most recent one was last summer, sometime in 2011. I did a webinar on joint ventures, and I went through the fundamental, foundational stuff of joint ventures and gave you some ideas of some endorsements and consignments and gifting strategies that are available. And today we're going to take it to a different level with the concept of Joint Ventures Plus. As you see on your screen, advanced joint venture techniques for marketing pros. So if you are not a marketing pro, you need to stay off of this webinar because this is only advanced stuff. It just reminds me of a experience I had as a very young man in the marketing industry. I was hired by a promoter to market a seminar put on by Brian Tracy. And I didn't know who Brian Tracy was at the time. I'd never heard of him. I was only, maybe 24 years old, 25, something like that. And the promoter said he's coming through town and he's putting on a seminar, and it's called Advanced Sales Strategies or Advanced Sales Techniques or something like that. And he had just come out with his book by that same title, Advanced Sales Strategies or something similar, but the word advanced was definitely in there. So I thought, okay, this is good. So I went and I got the book and looked at it a little bit, didn't know much about it, and I wrote this marketing letter that was really strong, and it talked about this is advanced stuff, and if you are new and you don't have this much experience, don't even bother showing up because this is not the basic stuff. And the promoter gently shook me and said, hey, it's just the title of the seminar in the book. It's not really advanced. It's actually pretty basic stuff. But this is actually, in fact, some pretty advanced stuff. I'm going to get into a strategy today. We're going to spend probably about 60% of the time today on the content provider strategy. And it's pretty advanced. It's involved, and it's not something that you can just kind of decide to do and throw it together in 5 minutes. It's something that takes a lot of advanced planning and time and effort, and the dividends can be tremendous. So that's why it's worth talking about. But it is indeed an advanced strategy. So all of those disclaimers that I put into that letter about, hey, you better be an advanced salesperson, they kind of apply in this situation. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. Let me just make sure my screen sharing is working. Okay, it looks like it is. By way of review, what is a joint venture? Leveraging existing customer relationships by offering other businesses products or services. Let other companies market to your customers and take a percentage of the sale, or other companies let you market to their customers and take a percentage of the sale. That it doesn't always have to be a percentage of the sale involved. Sometimes you get into different types of relationships where you can actually get paid to market to other people's customers. We'll talk about that in the content provider strategy here in just a minute. Financial terms can be flexible. It takes time, takes effort to pull this together. Most companies don't, they just won't do these because they'd rather spend money than time and effort. It is easier to write a check than it is to spend time, effort, and attention. However, the good news is for the people that take the time to do this is that because it's harder and because it takes time and effort and not just writing a check, it's a wide open field. There's just not very many people doing it. So there's a huge opportunity for you to walk in and do some of these things that we're talking about and not have it be competitive with the 29 other companies or 290 other companies that you're competing against. So just think about this stuff in terms of exclusivity and your ability to do some of this stuff without as much competitive junk to deal with, okay? So let's talk about three kinds that we're going to talk about today. These are not the only types of joint ventures, but these are some of the advanced strategies. First one is content provider. Creating content for other companies to use to educate, inform, or entertain their customers and prospects. And we'll use just a generic term a lot today called audience. Audience meaning whoever they have that they're talking to. It could be their customers. It could be their prospects. So not necessarily one or the other. Next one is called left field endorsements, using the power of endorsements even when there's no apparent connection between the two kinds of companies. And they call it left field endorsements because these are offers and endorsements that come to an audience seemingly out of left field, and it kind of catches them a little bit off guard, and they say, what the heck is that? Not in a negative way, but in a surprised way, and there's value in the surprise because it captures people's attention, okay? So we'll talk about that, and then we'll spend just a little bit of time on product placement, getting your product or samples in front of somebody else's customer base in a way that it can't be ignored. And I'll give you some ideas and some suggestions there. But like I said, we're going to spend probably about 65% of the time on content provider, and we're going to spend probably about 30% of the time on left field endorsements, and then just a little bit of time on product placement. Okay, so let's get going here. This is a picture of Jerry Seinfeld. Doesn't really look like him. He's kind of gotten older. Imagine that. In 15 years, he actually got older. Content provider is simple, and the reason I put Jerry Seinfeld with the NBC logo on the back is in the content provider, it's really no different than you being Jerry Seinfeld and NBC being the audience. One party needs good content to send out to its people. Another party can create good content. This is what's called a good match. So if you look at Jerry Seinfeld, you say, well, how much money did this guy make with his relationship with NBC over the course of whatever it was, 8 or 9 seasons that his show was on the air? And the answer is hundreds of millions of dollars for himself and for other people that were involved in that process. Why? Well, because you've got an entity called NBC that has an audience. And NBC ceases to have an audience unless they can provide content. A person like Jerry Seinfeld is a person that has content. He was a comedian. He wrote content that was funny, that people wanted to hear. He needed an audience. Without an audience, his content is worthless. So it's called a good match when you can take somebody that's got good content and somebody that has a good audience, and you match them up. Now, here's what happens in this environment. It's the classic win-win. Jerry Seinfeld wins. It's very lucrative to him because he now has access, instead of 1,000 people in a club that he's doing stand-up for, that he can reach and maybe sell some CDs or videos or something to. He now has literally tens of millions of people that he's reaching as his audience. So that's good. It makes him money, and it also makes the network money because they've got some content that people actually want to see. Now, that's an easy-to-understand relationship, and you might be saying, well, what does it have to do with my company? It's obviously, if you're an entertainer or an actor, you need an audience. Well, I look at it exactly the same way for your company. So let's just kind of jump into this, and I'll kind of refer back to the Seinfeld type relationship as we go through this. Okay, so let's begin with the end in mind, an homage to Stephen Covey, our grandfather of habit forming, who passed away, unfortunately, a couple weeks ago. He was in a bicycle accident. If you didn't hear about that, it was pretty unexpected. But anyway, what are you trying to accomplish with this content provider? Well, the first thing you do is build up visibility for yourself, for your company. Okay, you want people to just become aware of you. How many people were aware of Jerry Seinfeld before he was on NBC? Answer, a small fraction compared to those who ultimately became familiar with him. Next, building credibility. For your company, building credibility is a huge issue. You want people not to just know you're there, but also know that you are an expert in your field. Become a consultative seller and a consumer advocate. These two kind of go together. As you become a provider of content, you're going to position yourself not just as a credible expert, but as somebody who's genuinely interested in consumer and getting in helping people make good decisions. You want to gain access to thousands of contacts. That's probably pretty obvious. Trust me, this is worth the time and effort that it's going to take, and this is going to take time and it's going to take effort. This is not something that you just jump into for 5 minutes. Okay? Ultimately, it's going to drastically lower your marketing costs. Now, I'll tell you this, and I'll mention this throughout the conversation, but let me just mention it briefly now. We do a lot of this in our business, a lot of this in our business, and it drives our marketing costs down so low that the ironic thing is that for my company, we almost don't spend any money on marketing. In fact, because of this content provider strategy, we actually get paid to provide content that we can then get an audience that then that audience will then pay us to do stuff. Think about that for a minute. What if instead of buying advertising, you were actually getting paid to provide content? Now, that might sound like a pipe dream, but I think it can be either true or sort of true or generally true. And stick with me. I'm not saying do this instead of buying an advertisement. You can certainly do both, but this is something that you'll want to keep in mind. So the content provider, what kind of content can you provide? What are we even talking about when we say content? Well, the first thing is articles. You would be somebody that writes articles for newsletters, for web content, for printed materials. And I'm going to give you some very specific ideas about how to write articles here in just a second. Webinars, seminars, white papers, videos, audios that can be either distributed via CD or downloads. Seminars, again, why did I put seminars on there twice? Because I meant to say, actually, what did I mean to say? Oh my gosh, there was something I was going to put on there and I forgot what it was. But anyway, you get the idea. This is the kind of content that we're trying to put together. Things that we can distribute easily from you through another company to their audience, okay? So who needs content? Well, there's two general categories. The first one is those who already recognize that they need content. They're already publishing newsletters. Think about this. Are there any companies that have an audience that is similar to the audience that you'd like to be going after that has a newsletter that they send out? These are people that are looking for good content. It could be a news or an editorial company. Think about that for a second. If you went to a newspaper, they're always looking for editorial content. It could be regular companies. So it could be the local news. It could be somebody that publishes a magazine. It could be regular companies that just put out newsletters to their customers and prospects. But think about who's got an audience that is compatible with what you sell, and then start thinking about what kind of content that you could provide for them. There's also going to be people that don't recognize that they need content. You can propose content types to them that they wouldn't think of themselves, but would be beneficial to their customers. So, for example, we work with a lot of home improvement companies. So we go to companies that have customers in that arena, and we say, hey, how would you like us to put on webinars for your customers? And they say, hadn't really thought of that. And then we put on webinars, or we can produce content and send it through to their customers in the newsletters that they're already sending out. This is the same thing you can do. I'm going to give you some examples as we go through this, okay? How do you create content? This is the biggest issue. How do you create content? This is the thing that people really don't understand. They haven't put a lot of thought into it, so let me give you some tips and some ideas. It all starts with articles. You've got to write articles. Start with the headline bank and come up with 100 interesting article titles. I'll show you examples of this in just a second. Then read magazines, websites that need this kind of information and see what topics are trending. What kinds of things are being talked about? What could you write about that would be relevant, interesting? Here's another way. Just sit there and think of interesting things that you can write about that are relative to that target market, that are relative to your area of expertise. Develop the articles into other formats once you get them written, whether it's audios or videos, webinars, seminars, speeches, etc. Everything comes from the articles. You start with the article, and then you just create it into something else. You realize that you could write a book by simply writing 10 to 15 articles and then compiling them into a book? When we started this business in 1994, we decided that we needed a report that we could send out to people. But we didn't have a report. But I had been writing articles with the idea that I would get these articles published in the newspaper. Remember, this is 94. There was really no internet to speak of that was popular or well-known at the time. There's just, for most people, it didn't even exist. I hadn't even heard of it for most people. So I thought, well, I'm going to get these articles published in newspapers. So I wrote a series of articles. I wrote an article on the concept of USP, unique selling proposition. I wrote an article on the concept of joint ventures, and an article on with the concept of testing, and a couple of other ones. I wrote 5 of them in total, and I just written them, and I didn't know if they were any good, and I hadn't had any really all that much experience doing anything, and so I just kind of wrote these articles thinking that maybe someday I would do something with them. I was too chicken to actually send them to a newspaper. And as we started this business, we decided we needed a report and we tried a couple things. We tried to lift some information from some other authors, and it was a bad fit, and it was not legal, and so all those things, we said, gosh, we got to do something. So finally one day I said to my partner, well, I've written these articles, but I don't think they're any good. He said, well, let me read them. He said, well, these are pretty good. We combined them into a report called 5 Ways to Increase Bottom Line Profits Without Spending an Extra Dime, bound them on my dad's Xerox machine at his office using his collating machine where you got to crush the holes in it and then you comb bind it. I put together like 200 or 300 of those things, and we sent them out to leads that we generated. Content, okay? Content. Develop the articles in other formats. It can get into any format that you want. The key thing is you've got to have the base level content that you're going to write into the articles, okay? So here's a tip for you. Don't stick too close to your specific topic or area of specificity, of specialty. Cover topics related to yours that are interesting to your audience. If you are you can't just write about the one thing that you do. You've got to write about a wide variety of topics within the umbrella of the family of the thing that you're an expert in, okay? So you've got to keep it fresh, or else you're going to run out of audience. You can't just bang one key on the piano every single time you write an article. So just keep that in mind. I'll show you some ways to make this happen, okay? So here is the headline bank. You've probably seen this. It's available on our website. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And it has headlines like The Secret of Making People Like You, 5 Familiar Skin Troubles, Which Do You Want to Overcome, How I Improved My Memory in One Evening. And we took this headline bank, and we've had it for years. It's gone through a few different iterations. It started out with about 50 headlines, and then it ballooned up to, I think, 173, which was too many, and then we pulled it back down to 100. And we use this, obviously, to write headlines. It's called the headline bank. But then I had an interesting phenomenon. I had a client that we had taken the headline bank and written all of the headlines for, this particular client, and they came back and they said, hey, we need articles for our blog. Could you take that list of headlines that you wrote and write some blog articles? Because there's some really cool sounding stuff on that list. And I said, well, yeah, I probably could. So I went and I wrote a bunch of articles, and I'll show you some of those here in just a second. In fact, let me do this. You'll just bear with me. I don't have this on the slide, but I can certainly pull it. Let me pull this up real quick. Okay. You guys are okay with going a little bit off-road, aren't you? We're going to go a little bit off-road here. All right. Where are those things? And banners. Oh, I thought they were right here. Let me see. Oh, okay. Here we go. So here's a let me share my screen here with you. Okay, so here's a list of headlines written for an air conditioning company. The secret of a pleasant HVAC service experience. 5 familiar service technician problems. Which do you want to eliminate? How I improve the efficiency of my HVAC unit in less than 24 hours. A challenge to homeowners who would think that HVAC maintenance is a waste of time and money. 2 kinds of HVAC contractors. Which are you counting on? So we took this, and I'll let you look at that for a second on the screen. In fact, let me make it a little bit bigger on the screen so you can read it better. Okay. And then let me pull up some articles that were written. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm going a little bit off-road here, but you're probably okay with that. Okay, so here is one that was a headline that says, how to save a fortune by spending $22,000 on your next air conditioner. I know it sounds absurd, but it's absolutely true. A $22,000 air conditioner can save you so much on your energy bill that the additional cost is actually irrelevant. The reason why will resonate with people who already understand that it's actually worth it to spend $25,000 on a new Prius, even though the Prius has the look, feel, and power of a far less expensive car. It's about the gas mileage. The Prius might come at a $5,000 premium, but over the course of 5 years, you'll more than make it up in gas savings. And it goes on to talk about that. And we've got another one, 88,448 customers. Can't be wrong. Horizon Service is the highest quality HVAC company, period. And then we got another one, shopping around for the cheapest prices on new air conditioning systems. Not after you read this, you won't. Now think about this. This is an interesting article that could be used by lots of different companies. Shopping around for the cheapest prices on new air conditioning. This is something that could be used on a blog, which is going to help your SEO, which is something that we're not even really here to discuss, but it's definitely going to help out. But then look at this. Everybody knows there can be a big price difference between two TVs that appear to be the same at a glance. One 42-inch model might cost $450 at Costco, while another might be as much as $1,500 at another store. We all understand that the differences in features, brightness, crispness, richness of colors, as well as energy efficiency, durability, viewing radius, remote control, ease of use can make a huge difference. A similar discussion could be had about just about anything. Cars, computers, hotels, smartphones, jewelry, restaurants, etc. You name it, price is not the most important consideration. But when it comes to air conditioning system, it seems that everyone just simply wants the lowest price. And that's understandable. When you buy something that you almost never buy, and that something is something that you have very little understanding of how it works, what constitutes value or what you should be looking for, it's easy to default to simple comparison of prices. And yes, we all know that you have to compare apples to apples, but because of people's unfamiliarity with air conditioners, the apples look basically the same. So just give me the lowest price. You probably already see where this is going, but there's a twist, an important twist. Yes, it's important to compare the features of one air conditioning system over another. That's the obvious part. And with a little bit of information, you could easily choose a system that's right for your home. But the truth is, that just about any HVAC system has company has access to just about any brand and model. The most important question to ask is, who's installing the system? And then it talks about that. Next article, the 3 most dangerous words you could say to your HVAC service technician. You're the expert. The 3 fairy tales you'll hear from HVAC service companies, even honest ones. And then we talk about their standards. A little mistake that cost a homeowner $1,700 a year. Case study. Should you pay for the second repair? How to tell if the service technician is to blame for your HVAC service faulty service performance, and so on. The big area secret that big name HVAC manufacturers don't want you to know about their product quality. So this gives you an idea of how you take the list. Let me get back over here to my presentation. Okay. And you turn it into headlines that can then be turned into articles. Now, here's what you got to realize. This is what I talked about earlier. How many of your competitors are doing this? Answer, very few, probably none. So here's one we did for a company called Fantasy Tan. This is one of our clients that does spray tanning. They've got a very, very unique, proprietary, superior spray tanning formula and set of equipment and training methodology that makes their spray tan light years, literally light years above the competition. So we wrote a bunch of headlines right from the headline bank. And you see there it says blog articles consumer, because they've got to sell to the consumers. They've also got to sell to resellers, but these are ones geared at consumers. The secret of a beautiful, realistic, safe tan. 5 familiar tanning blunders. Which do you want to avoid? How I improve my tan in just 30 minutes. A challenge to women who would never even consider spray tanning. Everywhere women are raving about this revolutionary spray tanning process. 6 attitudes about fake tans. Which group are you in? Has your fake tan ever embarrassed you? The 3 biggest problems you'll have with most tanning methods and how Fantasy Tan overcomes them all. The people who want to tan but don't know who to believe. Don't get a fake tan until you've seen this sensation of all the fashion magazines. Can you spot these 7 common fake tanning giveaways? Make this 1-minute test of an amazing new kind of tanning method. Nobody should be allowed to get any kind of fake tan until they've watched this video 7 times. What everybody ought to know about various tanning methods. Free video tells you 5 secrets to getting the most realistic looking fake tan, and so on and so forth. Now, here's the deal. These are articles that would be interesting and useful to any number of outlets, and I'll show you in just a minute who they could actually distribute these to and through, but just to give you an idea of the types of content. So let's do this now for remodelers. You say, well, I'm a remodeling company. This is more geared towards kitchen and bath guys. The secret of a stress-free remodeling project. 5 telltale signs that your kitchen is overdue for remodel. Think about this in terms of the local newspaper in the town where you live. Not the big, huge metropolitan newspaper necessarily, but just the local one. Are these articles that would be interesting for them to run? How to remodel your bathroom under a week and for under 10 grand. A challenge to women who would never dream of remodeling their bathroom with an acrylic liner. Women everywhere are raving about this simple, inexpensive kitchen makeover. The 3 most common reasons people put off remodeling. Which group are you in? Does your kitchen ever embarrass you? These are great headlines. They're also good articles. The biggest problem you have with most remodelers and how to avoid them all. To people who want to remodel but think they can't afford it. Don't hire a remodeler until you've educated yourself on how to judge and rate them. Can you spot these 7 common the original headline is decorating sins. Remodeling blunders. Number 18, 3 fairy tales you hear for bathroom remodelers, even honest ones. These are all great blog topics for remodelers that can then also be distributed. Remember, when you begin with the end in mind, what you're trying to accomplish is to gain visibility, to build your credibility, to get in front of a large audience. Okay, so think about this. You can do this. Okay, we do this also. I went to the remodeling industry magazines and I said, hey, would you guys like to have some articles? And guess what they said? Yeah, we'd love to have articles, because normally we've got to pay editorial staff to write these things, and they're editorial staff, and they don't even really necessarily, have great content all the time. So I put together a list. Let me see I put together a list of remodeling articles. Look at these. 7 lies. Now, this is used not using the headline bank. This is used with me sitting down, thinking through things that I talk about and train about and that come up in topic of conversation with clients, and just coming up with, I challenged myself to come up with 75 article titles, and I did. 7 lies you believe about remodeling marketing. 6.5 ways to use iPad in your remodeling business. A fresh take on proximity marketing, cashing in on new movers. Itty bitty teeny tiny canvassing. The new improved testimonial. How to write FAQs that actually sell. How to milk your past customers for a business. 3 surefire ways to waste money on advertising. Co-marketing with big box stores, worth the price. Should you star in your own commercials? Best marketing advice for remodelers under $1 million. Best marketing advice for remodelers over $5 million. How important is price in advertising? Financial planning's best marketing schemes stolen and repackaged for remodelers, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. These are articles that would be interesting and relevant to remodelers, that the companies that are responsible for publishing this type of content would be interested in. Now, besides the magazines, who else would like this? Well, all of the companies that have customers that are in these various remodeling industries would love to have this type of information, okay? So you create content. Now, what the heck do you do with it? Number 1, get a completed set of content. Word completed is the key here. You don't need everything you'll ever create, but have enough to show others that you're serious. You want to allow your partners to see exactly what you have instead of having to visualize what you have. The worst thing you could do is say, hey, I'm going to write these articles. Hey, I'm going to put together this webinar. Well, show them the articles. Show them the webinars. Create 10 articles, 2 webinars, 1 seminar, 1 white paper, whatever it is. This is just a suggestion. That's not the ironclad rule. That's just some suggestions for you. Put this stuff together so that people can see it, so that they will then be able to visualize it for real, okay? Then start posting the information on your website and making it available to your own database. Don't worry if your attendance or your readership is low, okay? You're not necessarily doing this for that audience. Yes, you're doing it for that audience, and hopefully you have a big audience, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is establish yourself as a content creating and distributing entity, and you can now point to your own website and say, look, this is the kind of stuff that we're putting out there. What to do with your content? Create a knockdown list of potential partners. First, create a simple list of 100 companies that would be good candidates for this. Focus on getting contact names and emails, because what we want to do is email these people your content. Start sending them your content as a part of your list. Remember that list that we just talked about a minute ago? Put all these guys on that list. Separately then, email them or mail them information about using that information. So you're going to reach out to them separately and say, hey, you've probably seen our content, you've probably seen our articles, you've probably seen our webinars. Let me tell you how you can use that to benefit you. Then expand your list to 200, 300, and so forth, okay? You're going to start wall drugging them with your content. Now, here's the problem with this. If you don't get the list and you don't start wall drugging, it won't have any effect. If you've got a bunch of great content, but you're not sending it to potential partners, they're not going to see it. You don't want to call somebody out of the blue. You can do this, but this is not ideal. You don't want to call somebody out of the blue and say, hey, I've got all this great content. Do you want it? Because they're going to say, well, who the heck are you, and why should I pay any attention to you? But if you start sending them the content, and over the course of weeks or months or even years, they start to realize who you are, and you gain visibility with them because you've been hitting them consistently with this content, it's going to be a lot easier to convert them into a believer who's going to be willing to distribute it to their database. Okay, so just by way of example, we put together some things for our business, how to grow, how your customers help your customers distributors grow their business by providing marketing training solutions, easy, inexpensive, and effective seminars and webinars. And it talks about here's the different webinars that we've got, and it shows them. This is something we put together also. You know, it's kind of a little bit jacked up on there. Sorry about that. But we put together a content package that we would send through newspapers to their clientele. And it had webinars, and it had what we called a marketing hotline, and a bi-monthly printed newsletter and some audio CDs. Okay? What do you do with this content when you get it? Contact reputable media outlets and offer to provide content for them as appropriate, local TV stations or newspapers. As appropriate, industry magazines or trade journals. As appropriate, websites that relate to your industry. Create an ongoing column or series. Call it Ask the Expert. Call it Remodeling with Roger, if your name is Roger and you're a remodeler. If you're a dentist named David, that's probably not what you want to call your series. Whatever, it doesn't matter what you call it. The idea is offer this to them. So ask yourself this question. If you went to the local newspaper and said, hey, I've got this content, what is the likelihood that other people are going to them saying, hey, I've got this content? Now, all of this presupposes that your content is good. If your content is horrible, or it's very self-serving, or if it's sales pitch oriented, you're going to get laughed out of the door. But if it's good, then people are going to want this stuff. Okay? So the spray tan company, they can go to fashion and beauty magazines and websites. They can go to consumer protection companies. They can go to news outlets. They can go to the spa industry. They can go to retailers of beauty products, and they can say, hey, we'd like to provide this content for your customers. Okay, remodeling company, local TV stations, even if you can only get on their website, who cares? You don't have to be run as a feature story on the 10 o'clock news. Just get an article on their website. That's going to then link through your website, and your SEO is going to go freaking crazy and haywire. Local newspapers, they are starving for good, free content. Now, the key word there is not free, it's good, okay? Start with super local newspapers. They're easier to get in. So instead of going to the Dallas Morning News, if you were here in the Dallas market like I am, go to the South Lake weekly newspaper. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's the one that gets mailed out or gets thrown on your lawn every Friday morning or something like that. Start there. It's going to be a little bit easier to get in. I found that a lot of these newspapers that service the local markets, guess what? They tend to, not always, and certainly I'm not saying this is even the rule, but a lot of them are actually publishers of multiple local newspapers. So if you're in the Dallas area, the South Lake paper is also the same company that publishes the Plano paper and the Allen paper and the Irving paper and the Rockwall paper or whatever. I don't know those to be factually true, but you get the idea. So you could potentially crack into multiple newspapers through one source, but only if what? if you actually take the time and effort to do that, okay? All right, hang on just 1 second. Minor technical difficulty, and it has been solved. Okay, industry magazines allows you to establish credibility as an industry expert to your prospects. So let's say that you're a remodeler and you can get a column with Replacement Contractor Magazine or with Qualified Remodeler Magazine, or even not even necessarily an ongoing column, but just one column that you wrote. And you say, well, how is that going to affect the end users? And the answer is because you can now hold it up as credibility. It's a little bit different, but it is still worthwhile and useful. Okay, local radio stations. Think of particularly in terms of talk radio stations. Maybe you could come on there and have a 1/2 hour show on Saturdays. You say, well, maybe they're going to make you pay for that. Okay, we'll try it. See what happens. I don't know. Local hardware stores, suppliers, things like that would be willing to play ball with you and take that kind of information and distribute it to their customers. Other contractors who are non-competitive. So if they don't sell the same types of services, maybe they would be interested and willing in distributing your content. Okay, so that's content provider. So if you've got any questions about that, write them down and we'll talk about them at the end. Let's go to the next thing here, which is doing something a little bit unexpected, left field endorsements. Left field endorsements. First of all, what is any endorsement? It's when somebody who has credibility with a certain group proactively recommends something to that group. That's what an endorsement is. Most endorsements are somewhat related and therefore seem fairly natural to that audience. So for instance, a hot tub company endorses a patio enclosure company because it makes sense to enclose the hot tub. Or a basement finishing company endorses a pool table company. Well, you just got a new basement, you might want to stick a pool table in there. A dentist endorses an orthodontist, or maybe even a plastic surgeon if it's a cosmetic dentist, because those are things that are related to fixing the way that you look. A jewelry store endorses a wedding planner, the people that have bought engagement rings, or a CPA endorses a financial planner or an attorney. These are all things that would seem to be somewhat related and fairly natural to the audience. A realtor endorses a title or a mortgage company, and there's some legalities around that, but it happens anyway. So here's a letter that we put together. Pride Pools and Spas, ever considered adding a sunroom? You should. A special offer from the desk of Alex Smith, the owner. A sunroom can transform your home into a stunning showpiece. And it talks about how it's a good way to enclose a swimming pool, okay? No, we don't need to read this in detail, but just to give you a quick idea of how it works, okay? Left field endorsements is a little bit different. Somebody who has credibility with a group proactively recommends something to that group. So that's the same as a regular endorsement. Here's where it gets a little bit different. But the thing that they're recommending is unexpected or unusual in some way. The audience wouldn't normally expect it. So here's some examples of a left field endorsement. A dry cleaner endorses a closet organization company. Now, I put this in green, and you'll see how I get to yellow and then to red, because there is some relation there, the dry cleaner and your closet, but it's a left field example still, because do you really expect to get any kind of endorsement from your dry cleaner? Would you ever expect that? You probably wouldn't. Here's another one. This one's yellow. A mortgage company endorses a painting company. Well, it seems reasonable that you might need some painting after you moved into your home, so that's unexpected, but it's not unrelated. But then we get into some that are unexpected and unrelated. A CPA endorses a home builder, or a marketing company endorses a credit card processing company, or a dentist endorses a members-only vacation club, or a car dealership endorses a remodeling company. These are all things that you wouldn't expect. So when the endorsement happens, it tends to have power because the person that's receiving it, the audience, says, wow, why is my dentist telling me about a vacation club for members only? It's just so unusual that it commands and demands attention. So let's give some examples here. Well, let's give some criteria for executing, then I'll show you some examples. So to execute this properly, first of all, the endorser must have a database that has a high level of trust. High level of trust. Next, personal relationships are better than institutional relationships. So if there's a figurehead of that company, or if there's a salesperson, or there's some kind of person that has a relationship with the audience. That's going to be better than, hey, we're Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler and we want you to know about blah. That's not quite the same as something that's a little bit more personal in terms of the relationship. The endorser should have a personal experience with the product or service that's being endorsed. They should be a raving fan. This is critical to making this work. It can't just be, hey, there's this company, you ought to check them out. It's, hey, there's this company and I bought their stuff and it was freaking awesome. And so therefore, that's why I felt compelled to tell you. See, this is what bridges the gap of it being in left field. If you just said, hey, I'm a CPA and there is what was the example we gave? There's a car dealership that you should know about, or there's a home builder that you should know about, it seems weird. But if it comes based on experience firsthand, then it seems reasonable that they would reach out, and especially if the letter is worded properly, which I'll show you in just a second. Next, the endorser should tell the story with as much detail as possible. It lends to the credibility, and it makes it a lot more believable. Here's the best bet. Send the letter via U.S. mail. Second best bet is via email. But something of this magnitude should probably be sent out via mail. Now, you, as the person putting the joint venture together, are going to have to foot the cost for that mailing. And it doesn't always have to be done via U.S. mail. Sometimes email is just fine. It just is going to kind of depend. If you've got an audience that's used to getting emails from the endorser, then that might work just fine. If it's a little bit more unusual, then you might want to do U.S. Postal Service. So here's some quick tips. Number one, appeal to the endorser's ego. Hey, your people will listen to you because you've got their attention. You are so cool. They love you so much that they'll do whatever you say. Appeal to their ego. Number two, make sure that the letter is written in first-person format. I have this experience. This is what you should do. I'm telling you. Low frequency. This is critical. The endorser must limit this type of offer to his group or it's going to lose his appeal. If he sends out a left field endorsement for the home builder, the CPA for the home builder, and then next week one for a pool table company, and then the next week one for an automobile dealership, then he's going to start to look like a sellout. He's going to start to look like he's just trying to hit you up for your money. But the reality is, if it's done on an infrequent basis, read that, I would say the absolute maximum would be twice a year. Probably once a year would be better, and probably once every 2 years would be even better than that. You just can't wear people out with these kinds of offers, or it's just going to lose its punch. Make a special offer to the group that was negotiated by the endorser. Again, it's another ego booster. I was able to get this special deal for you because I'm so cool and I'm looking out for you. And also create a marketing tool that makes it easy for the audience to engage. So some kind of report or audio or video that they can watch that gives them more information than what the endorser is telling them. So here's an example for Judy's Dry Cleaners. From the desk of Ben Combs, Judy's Dry Cleaners. If you've ever considered getting custom closet organizers in your home, please read this letter immediately. I want to personally urge you to take immediate action on a time-sensitive opportunity that just became available, if it is all appropriate and if you qualify. I feel like part of my responsibility is to identify superb values and pass them on to you, my valued clients. We went from messy and out of space to beautiful and organized in just one day. Like many of you, my wife and I have a fair amount of clothes in our closet and have struggles to keep them neat and organized. We didn't ever have enough hanging space for our clothes, and we could see how much wasted space we had. Basically, we had a lot of clutter. One day, I struck up a conversation with one of my customers, Derek Holland, who runs a company called The Closet Doctor. They install closet organizing systems, and he said his service was quick and reasonably priced, so I had them come out to our home to give us an estimate. He pulled out his laptop computer and in a matter of minutes created a virtual design of our closet. We could see exactly how everything would look when it was completed. We were immediately sold. Way more affordable than we thought. Before we met Derek, we just assumed that custom organizers would be a big, expensive project, but Derek was true to his word. We were shocked at how simple the process was and how inexpensive it was relative to what we got. Overall, the project was just about 10 to 15% more than if we would have bought one of those do-it-yourself kits at Lowe's or Home Depot. To be sure, we had another well-known closet franchise quote the project and it was nearly double what the closet doctor quoted. Completely unexpected red carpet treatment, literally. They built the unit in their shop, which minimizes time and mess in the home. Then I was shocked when they came to install it. They literally rolled out a red carpet in my house to ensure they wouldn't damage anything when they were walking in and out with the materials. The installation itself only took 2.5 hours. They wiped down the closet and vacuumed the floors on their way out. I was so floored, and I readily agreed to spread the word to my customers. After the project, my wife and I were completely blown away by the entire experience, not just by the great new closet we have, but by the entire experience. Derek asked me, since I was so impressed, if there was some way to get the word out to my customers. Almost before he finished asking, I volunteered to write this letter with my ringing endorsement. And just to make the deal a little bit sweeter, Derek offered to pay $100 of dry cleaning for any of my customers who end up doing a project with him, plus a 15% discount. So if you've ever even thought about doing something like this, please do yourself a favor, give Derek a call right away. This offer is only good for a limited time period. Here's what you need to do next, okay? So you see how this encompasses all of the principles that we just talked about. Let's go to the next example. Steve Parker, CPA. If you've ever considered building a custom home, read this letter immediately. If not, please discard. This is a long letter, by the way. This is about 2.5 pages. You say, well, is anybody going to read that? And the answer is, well, if they're considering building a custom home, they probably will. If they're not, they probably won't. I've never written a letter like this before. I doubt I'll ever write anything like it again. I want to personally urge you to take immediate action on a time-sensitive opportunity that just became available if it's all appropriate and if you qualify. I feel like part of my responsibility to you is identify superb values and pass them along to you, my valued clients. That sounds familiar. As some of you may know, last February I began the daunting process of building a new home. I really did my due diligence on the entire building process, learning everything I could about what makes a builder great instead of just good, how long a home of this size range should take to build, 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, and how much a home should really cost to build using the highest standards. Based on my research, I identified 13 builders that seemed to be a good fit for the kind of home I wanted to build according to the standards I had found. I then set out to conduct a personal interview with the owner of each of these builders. On May 11th, my 11th interview was with Ed James of Stone Creek Custom Homes. It was perfectly clear within 45 minutes of meeting Ed that I'd found my builder. For over 2 hours, I listened to the most fascinating discussion on the topic of innovation, quality, and building the best home imaginable that I've ever heard. For most of the builders, I would sit quietly and listen politely to their canned presentations. But with Ed, I found myself scrambling to take notes. And by the time the 2 hours were over, I'd taken 9 full pages of notes and was convinced I was going to get the absolute best quality home. And here's the best part. I was going to get it for less money than any other builder. Now, this is called an incredible amount of detail. What struck me most was Ed's ability to explain in simple terms what it really takes to build a high-quality home and what you ought to get for your money. He revealed to me all the formulas that builders use to calculate their prices and showed me exactly where they inflated their margins and, as far as I'm concerned, rip off their customers. I learned how they overcharge for land, overcharge for materials, and overcharge for finish out in high-end homes. Finish out can account for as much as a $100,000 builder profit on a $750,000 home. I'm just talking about the finish out. Build your custom dream home the right way for 20 to 30% less than seemingly comparable homes. And then this goes into a detailed discussion of what he found out. I won't read the rest of the letter. You can actually find this letter in the book, Monopolize Your Marketplaces. Look it up. Okay? So let's do a left field endorsement for a window company. First question. Who have you had as a customer that has influence over a group? So look at your existing customer base. Was there anybody in there that you had done work for that was of any particular note? If not, maybe you could recruit someone as a customer like that. Don't sit around and wait for them. Go out and find them. Offer some incentive to get them on board. Be upfront about your intentions. Write the endorsement letter for the endorser. Never leave it to them. So you're just going to have to think through this. Okay, let's move to the last one here. We just got a few minutes left. The last topic for today, we've covered already content provider and left field endorsements. Now let's talk about the third advanced joint venture, which is product placement. And this is the classic 1992 movie Wayne's World, where they spoof product placements by blatantly and brazenly holding up products and talking about how other movies do product placements. It's a pretty funny scene if you want to watch that, but nevertheless, that's what we're going to talk about. You've probably seen product placements on TV and in the movies. Here's House with his Apple laptop computer, and you've seen on shows like what is this show called? American Idol. I couldn't remember all of a sudden. They've got the Coca-Cola cups that are always sitting out there. The legend of Ricky Bobby with his Wonder Bread and Old Spice racing suits on. Here's one that's a little bit more subtle, but not much. It's the movie The Transporter, where they drive this Audi, and he does all kinds of crazy stunts, which gives you the impression that the Audi can do anything. If you've seen this kind of stuff, you know what I'm talking about. What I'm going to encourage you to do is create your own product placement. You don't have to be on TV or in the movies to pull this off. Just think in terms of who's got an audience. That's what we're really looking for in any joint venture, is who's got an audience. Places of business with lots of foot traffic, events with lots of foot traffic, websites with lots of eyeballs. Anywhere that there are people, you've probably seen automobiles sitting in the mall like in this picture. There's nothing remarkable about this mall, and there's nothing remarkable about these cars, but they're put there so that people can just see them as they're walking by. And you've probably seen at airports or in malls kiosks like this. They're not manned kiosks. There's no employee there, but they show off and display and showcase phones and other technology products, okay? So let's do this for the donut shop. This is a takeoff of an example I used on a previous webinar. Think, who has foot traffic? Banks, retail stores, public buildings, schools, churches. The approach, give them a good reason to want to display your products. Making treats available for their customers is good. It's fun. It makes them look like a hero. And then give them a financial incentive to do so. So if you're the donut shop, you could send this letter out to try to recruit in joint venture partners for product placement. Treat your customers to free donuts from Texas Best Donuts. Looking for extremely inexpensive ways to build customer loyalty and keep them coming back. I'd like to offer you that with our free donuts for customers program. It's very inexpensive, extremely easy to execute, and best of all, it makes your customers love you even more. My name is Sam Moon. I'm the owner of Texas Best Donuts in Grapevine on Highway 26. Maybe you've seen our van parked out front of our store. We're right off Kimball Avenue. We've innovated a fantastic new program that allows you to offer free fresh donuts to your customers 1 day per week. And it's so easy and affordable, you'll be excited to get involved. Here's how it works. Easy, easy, easy. You choose which of the day of the week you want to offer free donuts to your customers. Any day of the week is fine. Just let us know. We'll deliver a predetermined quantity of donuts to your location at the time you specify. Most participants are ordering 6 to 10 dozen to be delivered between 7 and 9 a.m., but it's completely up to you. Our normal pricing for donuts is $5 per dozen. As long as you are willing to display our small 5x7 sign and 3x5 take-one cards, samples provided below, we will sell you donuts for only $2.20 per dozen, our cost to make and deliver them. We also have the ability to create signage and advertisements for your company that promote your free donut giveaways. There's no charge for this service. You win by offering tasty treats to your customers for free. We win because more customers find out about the store, our store, by seeing the sign that you display. So we're being very upfront about our intentions, but it's a good win-win. I want to give you 40 free dozens to get the ball rolling. Hey, I know talk is cheap, so let me put my money where my mouth is. Let me give you 10 free dozens a week for 4 consecutive weeks, plus the signs and advertisements to promote your free donut promotion. If you don't feel like the promotion is creating positive buzz for your business, then you're under no obligation to continue. If you do want to continue, we'll determine the proper weekly quantity and go from there. Call me to discuss. We're looking forward to working with you. P.S. Just a quick heads up, I'd be sending you 2 free dozen donuts per week to your store until I hear from you. I hope you enjoy them and let me know what you think about our Texas Giant. Okay? This is genius. So they're going to pay you your wholesale cost to put your donuts as an advertisement in their bank. How great would that be? And the answer is, it would be fantastic. So this is what we're talking about with product placement, putting the product somewhere where it can be seen. So let's do one now for the window company, then we'll be done. Is there a building where you could replace the windows? If not, is there somewhere where you could place window displays? General traffic environments like malls and so forth, or specific traffic environments, hardware stores, paint stores, grocery stores, anywhere locally where there's foot traffic where they could see your display. Places where people are forced to wait, like oil change or car wash or the dentist or the spa. You say, well, is the dentist going to let me put a window display in his waiting room? Well, maybe he would let you put a report or some kind of video or something. Don't just discount it and say, well, it's not possible because you can't do it because it's not easy. Work a little bit at it, okay? Same kinds of websites that we discussed in the content provider strategy also is a place that you could put your displays, your product placements, okay? So that gives you a pretty good idea. What I want to do now is if we have any questions, I'll take them via either the question thing on your console, or you can raise your hand. Let me see if we got any questions. Okay, I see Brad Davidson is on the call. Brad, you could put product placement in lots of places. Who knows? Build some cabinets for somebody. Commit yourself to spending $5,000 a month in retail cost to build cabinetry or closets or organizers for various places, stores. Go think of all the retail stores that would love to have some sweet custom cabinetry that you could go and put that in their store. You could say, hey, you've got a clothing store, let me build some really cool looking stuff for you and put it in here, and all I ask is that you put this little plaque on there that says this is provided by Custom Closets, go to our website. You know, maybe put one of those little QR readers on there, something like that. Do something that's really unique and interesting and different. And if you go ask 20 people to do it and only 2 say yes, then that's 2, right? Okay? Anyone else have any questions? That wasn't really a question, but does anybody have a question? Okay? I don't see any, so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for participating today. It's a good topic. You are my advanced students, so thanks for being here today, and we'll talk to you. Let's see, we've got a TMAC next week. We've also got an innovation call next week, so we'll talk to you then. Thanks. Bye now.